Right, so what is going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel in this week's video. Today I'm going to be taking you through tips and tricks, execution, setup, loads of different things to do with growing your arms, more particularly your biceps in this video. I did a similar video a little while ago, but there's a few things I'd like to freshen up and draw back on. So I'll leave a link in the description below to that if you want to check that out as well, anything that I may not cover in this video or just some other ideas that you might want to implement into your arm workout to grow your arms, because that's what you're here for. So what I'll do is I'll put on the screen the 3 bicep exercises that I did for my arm workout, and have an overlay at the top where I talk through it all, similar to the previous videos that I've done based on my training split. So first up we have a prime preacher curl, and the first thing I want to bring up is to really have a purposeful contraction on each rep, even in the lighter or warm-up sets leading up to your top set. You want to really focus on contracting, and what I mean by this is when you curl, don't just drop straight down to your eccentric. I want you to squeeze at the top. I really want you to imagine trying to pop something between your bicep on each rep. So really squeeze, even like a slight pause to begin with to get used to squeezing it, and then you can keep it under a constant range of motion and constant tension when it becomes more habitual. So that will lead me on to controlling the change in direction. So as I said, you want to squeeze at the top and not just fling it up and come down again. So you want to hold it there, control it down, and don't just use momentum to swing yourself back up. I want you to slight pause at peak eccentric before you go back into your concentric, and that's called changing the direction. That will minimize momentum to not only keep the tension on the muscle that you want to, in this case obviously the bicep, but will also prevent injuries and standardize the movement for progression if you use a logbook style of training. Another thing I want to bring up here on this prime preacher curl more specifically is exercise selection. So as you can see, I'm lucky enough to be using prime equipment which has their 3 different methods of loading. You got the beginning range, the middle range and the end range, notified by the 3 different pegs on the machines. So if you have access to that, then I highly recommend using it and taking advantage of that, not just loading it all on the middle peg. So what I've done here, begun to load the middle peg, and I've also loaded the bottom, so the end range peg as well, just a little bit. This is because the bicep biomechanically is stronger in the second half of the concentric than it is in the beginning range. So as you control the movement, it's going to be harder here and get easy as you contract. Load it in the part of the movement which is strongest so that you can get the most out of your set. Because if I loaded the beginning range, I'd fail here and still have a lot of energy in the end range of the contraction. So to load the middle and the end means that I can still contract on that beginning phase where it's weaker, and then make use where the weight becomes heavier where I'm strongest. As you can see here, even when I get into my top set here and I'm struggling to get each rep, I still control the eccentric. I don't just drop it and use momentum to fling it back up, controlling that change direction, but also controlling the eccentric portion of the exercise. Obviously this is where the gains occur, in the eccentric, and fighting against the weight and gravity on each rep. So moving on to the second exercise, and we've talked about execution and how you should execute the movement, but I'm also going to bring in tips on obviously anatomy and how the biomechanics of the arms work. So as you can see, as I begun this exercise, I took a step back. Increase the distance between me and the cable will make it harder. This is because I can fully extend the bicep and still have it out in front of me. This is called a mechanical advantage. So what you'll see as I get into my top set is I start further away, and as I begin to struggle to get the reps, I'll step closer and make the reps a little easier for myself, just so I can maximize the output on the top set. Also, I want to bring up on the top set is I'm keeping my form perfect for as many reps as possible. So elbows are tucked, scapula is dropped, and I'm using nothing but my biceps to move the weight. However, on my heavier sets, when I begin to struggle, I'll get the most out. And if I can't get any more, and I know I won't be able to get any more, I'll use a little bit of a swing, and I'll cheat a little bit of the reps on the concentric. But remember what I said, to always keep control of the eccentric. So I'll be even more focused on making the most out of the eccentric, slowing down that portion of the rep, and then using a bit of momentum, a bit of my traps to bring the weight up again. It's okay. Obviously you want to keep form as perfect as possible for as long as possible, but to cheat a few reps at the end of your set, if that means you get a little bit more out of the set, then it's only going to benefit you, within reason that you don't do it in a way that's going to injure yourself. On the topic of injuries and also agonistic and supporting muscles, I want to bring you on to a technique that I'll use for training my arms, and that is pre-fatigue. So like I said, with making sure to fully contract and have purposeful contraction and squeeze the muscle even on your warm-up sets, that also applies to increasing the volume in those warm-up sets leading up to your top set. So not only will this mean that you won't get as heavy on your top set as you would maybe if you accumulated less volume in those warm-up sets, which is extremely beneficial for a muscle group like arms, where the mind to muscle connection is, in my opinion, pivotal to growing them. Because if you don't pre-fatigue the bicep or the tricep, and you keep the volume low and get really heavy, you will have to use the supporting muscles to move the weight, i.e. using the back to swing up a bicep curl, or using the traps to squeeze up the top of the top range of the exercise, or bouncing and using leg drive to swing up the dumbbells. All of these factors will take away from the stimulus that is put on the bicep, or any muscle for that fact, and therefore take away from the growth that will occur. But more specifically for the bicep, as it is a limb, it is a secondary muscle, is not as big as say your chest or your back or your quads, and it's not as strong. So that means that as you do get into the higher weight, stabilizing muscles will contribute more to the movement, and as they are bigger, they are more likely to take over the movement. Because of this, you want to keep the weight lighter, obviously as heavy as possible, to put more stress on the bicep or the tricep, and therefore cause more stress for it to grow. But you want to do it in a controlled and standardized manner where each rep is perfect. Obviously I said about the cheat reps at the end as an additional stimulus, as much as you can, keeping it perfect, tension coming through the intended muscle, so the bicep, without the contribution of the traps to swing it up, or the back or the leg drive to contribute each of the phases of the movement, so legs in the beginning phase, the back in the mid phase, and the traps at the top range of the motion. So we've talked about tips on execution and how you should train when it comes to being in the gym, and also a little bit on exercise selection, but I want to delve into that a little bit more here. Exercise selection is key. As you all may know, training something like arms, it's a lot of repetition, a lot of curls. However, you don't want to be doing the same sort of curl on every exercise, otherwise you're only going to be developing your arms partially. So I started off with a closer but still supinated grip on the preacher curl, which is still going to utilize some of the short head, but as we're getting closer in and our arm turns in towards our body, we're going to be bringing in more of the bicep long head, which is the outer peak of the bicep. So if I did that, I wouldn't want to do the same sort of movement again. So in the second exercise, I went a bit wider with my grip, still keeping it supinated, but so my wrists are turned a little bit outside of the body, which will put more stress on the bicep short head. I've hit the long head and the short head, and I finished off with my third exercise with the Fisher curl, which will further the volume put on the bicep long head, but also bring in the muscle of the forearms, like the brachialis and the brachioradialis as well. So within these three exercises, I've hit the bicep long head twice, which is where your bicep peak and making the mountains on top of your arms grow bigger. That will come from your bicep long head. Hitting the bicep short head to give the aesthetic from the front view, so between your bicep and your tricep here, and then also adding some volume to the forearm muscles so that it doesn't look out of place next to the biceps and the rest of the upper arm. This part of exercise selection also refers to the use of machines, cables and free weights. So you don't want to only use dumbbells, as gravity controls the tension that is placed within the movement. So as I was doing the Fisher curls, there is a lot more stress put on the bicep in the beginning phase than there is when the bicep is fully contracted. You don't want to only use dumbbells, so we'll utilize things like machines and cables. We use the preacher machine to really put further stress on the eccentric, so we're putting stress on the concentric when it comes to the dumbbell exercises, and eccentric focus on the preacher curl. However, we use the bottom peg to also load the top range of the exercise as well, to match up with the strength profile of the bicep. And then we also had the cable as well, which keeps continuous tension throughout the whole range of motion from bottom to top. So the cables are a great way to train your arm, so don't neglect the cables if you want big arms. I also mentioned about pre-fatigue and the accumulative volume that I use to grow my arm, so keeping higher reps from my lowest weight to my highest weight, and not just using feeders and low warm-ups. And as I mentioned, the reasons why I believe this is the best way to train your arm. To add more volume, you can use intensifiers like rest pauses and drop sets. You saw on the video I did two drop sets, both on my top set of the cable curls and my top set of the Fisher curls, where I did a heavy drop set, 20, 15, 12, 10, 7.5 and 5 kilos, trying to get as many reps as possible on each of them. I think I got 8, 10, 10, 15, 20. So what's that? 20, 35, 45, 55, 60, 63 reps on each arm, just on that one set. However, you can't just keep on increasing the volume as your rate of recovery will suffer. You can keep increasing the volume, but you'll hit a ceiling where if you train any more and add any more volume, you will not be able to recover before your next session. So that is when you'd increase the frequency of training. I have an arm day, so I just train my arms once a week. And especially on this new program where my volume has increased throughout all my other exercises, I kept the arms strictly on that one day. However, the past couple of weeks, I've found that I can train my arms an extra time in the week. Just one extra exercise, one tricep at the end of my chest and trap workout and one bicep at the end of my back workout, just to get that extra bit of frequency and that extra bit of accumulative volume over the span of the week. So I have my dedicated arm day where I focus on growing my biceps and my triceps, and then I have just an extra pump session where I do one set. I use a giant set technique for this, where I will, so for example, biceps, I will do fisher curls. I'll pick up say a 7.5 kilo dumbbell, I'll do 30 reps, pick up the 10, do 20 reps, and I'll pick up the 12 or 15, do 10 reps, take a little break, and then drop it back down in the same fashion, so 10, 20, and then 30 reps again. But on each arm, that is 60, that's 120 reps, 60 up and 60 down, just to add that little bit of, just that extra stimulus over the span of the week. But I think that's all I wanted to cover on when it comes to biceps. I hope you did enjoy. I hope you like the t-shirt as well. I just got sent this from My Proteins. It's blue with a white stripe. It's like a football t-shirt. It's really comfortable as well. So if you do want to shop My Protein, I will leave a link in the description below. Separate links, one for the clothing if you want to get something like this, or also on for supplements as well. If you're watching the video close to when it's released, so Wednesday the 12th, there is currently a clearance sale on My Protein, so get massive discount. I think it is something like 50% off plus an extra 35 to 40% off with my code at checkout. So I'll leave links to all that in the description below. The codes will also be in the description. I'll also leave a link to my Instagram if you want to be coached by me. I've got a few slots open for my online coaching, so check it out. Give me a DM on Insta and I will send you over an inquiry form for you to complete and fill out and have a little look at what my service will entail. But that's it for now. Hope you did enjoy. If you did, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, click the notification bell as well so you know when I upload, drop a little comment, let me know what you think of the video, some other things you want me to cover in the coming week, coming months, coming videos. Share it to a friend, help them to grow their arms, and that's all for now, and I'll catch you next week. I'm out.